Yeah, these people are pro-birth. They're not pro-life.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, because they'd be pro the mother's life as well, you
Sure.
know, and they're not that either.
Sure.
So,
Is there anything specifically on your end that you like felt like besides outrage? Like, do you have experience in like this? I know that you do a lot of activism, so that's why I'm asking if there's more of like this hits more on a personal. Do you in terms of like the activism that you've
I mean,
done?
I think being an activist or not, it's a personal note because like we're human. Yes,
Sure.
I have like the possibility of getting pregnant, but that shouldn't affect me more than it affects somebody else.
Sure.
It affects all of us the same. And so I don't know, I guess like the main focus in my head is that this entire issue is relating to human rights, but the problem is you have people like Alito that don't think that women are human, like that we don't deserve rights. We, especially like, I mean, he's quoting stuff from, you know, the 1700s as far as...
Is he? I didn't even read like the full thing of the document because it's like 98 pages, bro. Like, come on.
Yeah, so he's quoting stuff from Matthew Hale, who is like relevant in the 1700s, and it was mostly referencing the fact that women are the property of their husband. And so the biggest argument was that in a marriage, a husband cannot rape his wife. And so that's kind of like where this started, because she's not allowed to refuse him legally at that time. Was not allowed.
Okay. So you're sorry. I thought you were for clarification. You're saying that he was making the argument that even if somebody's wife refuses to have sex and the man has sex with her anyway, which is rape, that is not considered a rape because of the fact that she's married to him and that's his property.
Because it goes back into biblical
it.
standpoint of a woman coming from Adam's rib.
Got it.
She is an extension of the male.
Sure.
She is not her own entity.
Got it.
And so the fact that I don't know that this is 2022 and we're quoting shit from the 1700s is like atrocious. But I mean, beyond the fact that like we are all human beings and we should have autonomy over our body, like anything should be our choice. And if it's going to be our choice to have sex, which it absolutely should be, and we should be able to do it healthily and happily, like we shouldn't be suffering from any semblance of a consequence from that. It doesn't matter what choices we are then making.
Sure.
It should still be our choice.
It's such a weird
Let me see. I'm going to pull this up. Sorry.
go ahead. It's such a weird conversation because it's such a weird feeling that I'm getting because traditionally speaking, the people on the right are the ones that are like, less big government, small government stays, let me do whatever I want, except for when the hypocrisy kicks in.
Right.
And they're now talking about this, and they're like, no, big government, like,
they're
end
doing
this,
it right now. Yeah.
Which is, again, my biggest gripe with the right is the hypocrisy. But then it makes me feel weird, even on a personal level, right? I'm gonna get a little bit like more lighthearted here. Like, it makes me feel like I'm ideologically libertarian.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, don't tread on me, like, you know what I mean? And it just makes me feel this like weird ick.
Yeah.
Like, how did we all of a sudden just like flip information?
Right.
Like, how do we just like whoop, like swap?
Yeah.
Only on this thing specifically. You know what I mean?
So according,
go ahead. Sorry. What are we looking at?
What we pulled up, it says it was in the 1970s that what Lindsay was talking about with like marital rape, that started to change and they started to see things differently.
Yeah,
but
it wasn't until 93.
It wasn't until 1993
Yeah.
that they finally changed the law in all states.
Right.
Okay,
93.
so just for like big reference so that we don't like so we stay on this because this is a big point. 1993, which was what 30 years ago.
30 years ago.
30 years ago.
I'm 36, so that was in my lifetime.
Wow.
30 years ago.
Women weren't allowed to claim that they were raped by their husband in some states.
Correct.
But yeah,
Yeah.
because there were.
So this is wild. This is like up there, kind of like parallel to like Mississippi or whatever fucking state that was that like just recently considered lynching a hate crime. Like this is that kind of outdated, like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Because even though nobody's like, no. This is about principle. You know what I mean? So thanks for pulling that up, because that's what you were talking about before, right? Just for clarification.
And then the other thing I wanted to, I guess I can pull this up as well, because you mentioned at the very beginning, you said that there were 16 states that would immediately
13.
go into
13.
Is more?
From what I'm looking at, it looks like there are 26. Let me pull it up, because maybe I'm reading the maps
it might have
wrong,
changed.
but
I
pulled up
originally
maps
saw
that
I think
are saying 26.
I think the article that I was looking at the time said we think that 13 states have an automatic trigger ban, but it might be more. It absolutely might be more. I'm not contesting that at all.
There's also if you follow the map of like access. So there's some states where obviously access will be closer because crossing the border into a state that allows abortion is like much closer. Whereas Texas, of course, we get to be like the worst one on the map because we're a huge state and it's impossible to get across border lines to be able to find legal access to abortion care.
Can I add something to you?
Please.
Yeah, you can
always.
So access. So hi, I'm just a random person sitting in the room, but I also have a public health degree, and I did a lot of work with reproductive rights back home in Arizona. And so one of the things that clouds some of these statistics a little bit that you have to think about is access, and specifically where states allow abortions to take place, period, right? And one of the things that a lot of states adopted in the kind of early 2000s is they rewrote what individual institutions would have to have as far as building codes in order to perform an abortion, right? And so what that meant is that you had to have a hallway that's double wide so that two stretchers, even if they only have one stretcher every other week, right? Two stretchers can pass by each other. They rewrote the actual codes for what these facilities have to have. And what that meant functionally is that the Navajo reservation is no longer able to do these things, right?
Right.
Or like
because they don't get any funding to be able to build a
it's
facility.
Partially that, but it's also partially about having the institutional money to perform them. And one of the biggest disparities in which institutions have money as far as healthcare organizations in the U.S. is whether or not they're in a city or whether they're in the country, in the rural place. Because most places that are rural only have federal, like Medicare, Medicaid that pays for people to be there. And so there's not a massive donor that's going to be donating money to these rural outlying places. And what that's effectively done is it's created huge and vast deserts, which disproportionately affects poor and rural people.
Right.
And this is the abortion version of gerrymandering and redlining, you know.
It's not even just healthcare. I mean, you can go all the way back into like food and, sources of clean water, but which all contribute to healthcare. Right.
Thanks for all that. That's the kind of stuff I tend to